Okay, my name is Isaac Marquez, and today I will be discussing and sharing with you the conversion of glucose to pyruvate in humans. Just a disclaimer, I want to go out and say that I have yet to study biology yet, so a lot of these words and terms I'm unfamiliar with, so I apologize for butchering them because I know I will. Trust me, I've been practicing, and even then I still have a hard time with it. Okay, so the reaction is actually a 10-step process that converts glucose to ends up being two 3-carbon molecules, which are called pyruvate. There's two phases, and each phase has 5 steps involved with it. So the first phase is called the energy requiring phase. Right, so it's called the prep phase. Um, then from there, we go into phase two, which is the energy releasing phase. It's called the payoff phase and the breakdown. So underneath right here, you see this is uh, the actual reaction that ends up being. So this is the first step of the process, and then eventually this is what the 10-step process ends up resulting in, your chemical equation. All right, so now let's try to break this thing down. All right, so this is where the difficult part starts to come in. And once again, I apologize for my pronunciation. So in this first step here, we have a phosphate group is being transferred to the ATP, which is short for adenine triphosphate. Um, I will, after I say these things and do them, I'll refer to them in their smaller form so that way I don't keep butchering them. So it ends up turning the glucose into glucose 6 phosphate, which is more reactive than glucose and also traps the glucose inside its cells since the glucose can't, with the phosphate, can't just cross the membrane as easily. Um, so the enzyme that takes place in that one is hexanase. Okay, then we move to step two over here where the glucose 6 phosphate is converted using the isomer phase of um, phosphoglucose isomerase, and from there it ends up getting converted to fructose 6 phosphate, as you can see right there in the diagram. Next, we move to the third step, which is the phosphate group is transferred from the ATP to the fructose 6 phosphate, um, which ends up resulting in fructose 1 and then 6 biosphosphate. Now, the enzyme in that one is phosphofructose fructinase. I know I messed that one up, but that's what it is. So this one right here. And then we move on to step four of this one. So you got fructose 1, and now we have 6 biophosphate, which gets split. And the enzyme in this one is going to be fructose biophosphate adylase. Now, or just adylase. Now, ends up resulting in the um, glyceraldehyde 3 and dihydroxynitrate phosphate, which dihydroxyacetone phosphate, DHAP, and then, like I said, glyceride 3 phosphate. Okay, so from there we move on to the last one of the preparatory phase. So the DHAP is end up converting into glyceride 3 phosphate. The two molecules will exist in kind of a balance, so to say, um, but the equilibrium ends up being pushed downward, which is you can kind of see in the diagram right here. Um, so there you ended up with the end of that particular phase. So now we move to phase two. Now, phase two is also known as the payoff phase. This is where where we get the energy, right? So we've added energy to break it down, and now we're taking energy and getting it out. So uh, the sixth step, which is going to be the first step of the payoff phase, um, it loses 2 electrons and 2 protons, reducing NAD plus to NADH. This is producing a hydrogen plus right there, as you can see. Bam, hydrogen plus. Releases energy, which attaches to the other phosphate to the sugar, forming um, 1,3 biphosphoglycerate. And the enzyme in this one is glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate dehydrogenase, which is that right there. Okay, so then we move into step 7, where the 3-biofosglycerate donates one of its phosphate groups to the ADP, making a molecule of ATP and three, um, turning it into the 3-phosphoglycerate while it's doing that, uh, which is right there. Now, the enzyme in this particular phase is going to be the phosphoglycerate kinase. And that's kind of hard to make out right there, but that's going to be the enzyme that we're using at that particular one. We move into step 8, which is when the 3-phosphoglycerate is converted into an isomer of 2-phosphoglycerate using the enzyme phosphoglycerate mutase right there. Okay, and then now we move into step 9. We're getting closer to the end now. And this is just the end of the beginning, so to say. So the 2-phosphoglycerate loses a molecule of water, thus becoming phosphoenopyruvate, which PEP, PEP. It's a little unstable, but it's kind of poised to lose that in the last step of the glycolysis part. The enzyme in this particular one is going to be enolase. Finally, we move to the final step in the second phase and the overall process. It's going to be step 10. So the phosphoenopyruvate donates its phosphate group to ADP, making the second molecule of that ATP. So we finally get that one out. And after it loses its phosphate, it's converted into pyruvate, the end product of the glycolysis. So um, thus, it finally breaks it down. We got the 280 ATP, the 2-pyruvate right there is the end group. Um, so that's what we ended up with at the end. So I know there's a lot of terminology and a lot of words, but what does that mean to us? Well, the glycosis, this is called the glycosis step, right? It's the first step of the breakdown of glucose to extract energy for cellular metabolism. Basically, at the end of the day, we break down the glucose for usable energy. It's the energy that we use in our bodily functions to, everything for how we break down, how we get the energy that our body needs to sustain ourselves throughout the day. And of course, this is just the imperfect form kind of thing going on. Remember, there are other things that can cause to um, some difficulties as far as this process is concerned, things like diabetes, things of that nature. But, giving an ideal body, ideal situations, this would be what we would go with. Uh, so that is my presentation. Thank you for bearing with me through this one. And like I said, I really apologize about the pronunciation of some of the words as I tried my best to get through that one. But I really enjoyed being in this class and really appreciate you taking the opportunity. Have a great day. Bye. Happy Thanksgiving, guys.